Ladies and gentlemen, it's with my pleasure that I welcome you all back to Talking Numbers. It's a special edition of Talking Numbers this time, and I'm going to be talking about property. And this is going to be my Property Plus series. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Paul Jantz, and we've run this Talking Numbers podcast series probably for the last 3 years now. It's been hugely popular. It was probably the number one podcast in the accounting industry, I think, 2 years ago. So we're going to branch out with a few more little extensions of Talking Numbers, and this is my Property Plus series. So we hope you enjoy this new Talking Numbers series. I'm going to chat to a very, very good individual in this industry, in this property industry that's been around for a while. And this particular series is going to be brought to you by Virtual Financial and J. Anderson Property. Now, over the next 30 minutes, I'll probably go for about 25 to 30 minutes, so please enjoy the conversation that we're going to have. I'm going to be talking everything property and why we, as probably Aussies, Australians, we continue to invest in property. It tends to be the first thing that most people want to. I think when we're 18, 19, I think I bought my first property when I was 21. It's sort of one of those things that we're grown up with. We're grown up with things like Monopoly, and we're addicted to it. I know, playing with my family. Sorry to go off track here, Jay, a little bit, but but I knew, you know, it was sort of one of those things. And now I still do it with my children now, where we're addicted to playing games and Monopoly in particular, and buying and selling and renting, and it's all of that. So it brings that little extra layer to what I've learned over my time. So I look forward to bringing all of you that are listening to this, whether you're in the car, whether you're at home, whether you're in the office, take notes. The great thing about the podcast series, you've got the ability, obviously, to rewind and go back, listen to it, share it, whatever you wish to do. So today, I have the pleasure in chatting to a property expert, Jay Anderson. Jay, welcome to Talking Numbers.
Thanks, and very excited to be part of this new series. So thank you.
Yeah, mate, thank you. I had the pleasure of meeting you a few months ago through Adam from Virtual Financial, and we presented together in Brisbane, which was awesome. And that just gave us both the thought process of, well, how do we just continue to share your message? It was a great little session we ran with maybe 30, 40 people, but this is about expanding on that now and sharing. You know, Professional Partners Network has always been about education, about bringing new educational, non-technical education to the accounting industry. And I think property is one of those things that I think everyone's client can be and will be interested in. Mate, before we kick off, let's share a little bit about you. I know this whole new series is coming together, and it's great for maybe for people to know a little bit more about you. Tell us a little bit about you and why we should be listening, or everyone listening to this series.
Yeah, great question. So I guess, as my business name suggests, my name is Jay Anderson. I'm a qualified property investment advisor, buyer's agent, and property strategist. I own and operate a business called J. Anderson Property, and we help property buyers with all budgets research, source, and secure both residential and commercial properties right around the country. And I think kind of the idea and the thought process behind this podcast and this series is just to share, I guess, open up and share some of my knowledge and insights into property investing, and hopefully, I guess, educate, inspire some of our listeners to either begin their property investment journey or continue to grow their property portfolio.
Yeah, great little intro, mate, and thanks. And we're going to get into a fair bit. I think this series, you know, we're going to talk about sort of some of the mistakes that property investors can make. We're going to talk about reinvesting. We're going to talk about, obviously, the one thing that sort of resonated with me when I saw you present that first time was the amount of research that you guys do, and it is phenomenal. So if you're listening to this, and you know, you're going to find the true value of using, let's say, a buyer's agent, and we'll break that down because a lot of people may not know what a buyer's agent is. We'll talk about the type of properties you could look at, as well as what is interstate, and we're going to talk about where you can begin your property journey. So again, that's what this whole series will be about. So if you're listening to it and you want to share it, please do so. We look forward to bringing you some really, really in-depth information so you can make some really good decisions moving forward with your property investment. Mate, let's kick off with, you know, why property? You know, there's a lot of things, I suppose, there's a lot of things people or Australians can invest in. from shares to a lot of people talk about investing in ourselves, which not a lot of people do first up. But, that's going to come out soon in terms of how much time you've invested in yourself, Jay, because that's the one thing that I really enjoyed about you, how much time you invested in you to provide others. And that's a great thing. So, but why do most individuals choose property?
Yeah, and I think you touched on this in your intro, but certainly Australians have this love with property, and I think it's really because of, I guess, five key reasons. Number one, I think, is it's property is a tangible asset, meaning it's something physical that you can see and touch. And I guess from that point of view, for the most part, it's then easier to understand how it works as opposed to, say, shares in a company. Being a tangible asset as well as you can control that product, so you can make decisions whether it be adding more value to it through renovations, or making decisions about property management, or whatever it may be. It's something they can really get their hands on, touch, feel, and control. So I think that's probably the number one thing. Number two is when we have a look at Australia. The vast majority of wealth in Australia is underpinned by residential property. And I guess when we compare, say, residential property to other things like superannuation or the share market, residential property as it stands is about $9.95 trillion in Australia. If you compare that to, say, the total value of superannuation in Australia at 3.4 trillion, or the share market at 2.6 trillion. So it certainly takes up the bulk of Australians' wealth is in residential property. I guess number three would probably be the power of leverage. So the amazing thing with property is it allows you to invest, I guess, limited capital, usually say 20% of the purchase price for a deposit, and the rest of it can be leveraged by using the bank's money via a mortgage. And the advantage of that, August, the power of leverage, is when the property goes up in value, the property goes up based on the total value of the property, not just that cash or capital invested. So the power of leverage over a longer period of time can be substantial. Number four would be, I guess, the returns that it can generate, both by rental income and capital growth. Rental income is what helps you hold on to that property. So the rent can help you pay for some of the holding costs like loan repayments, repairs, maintenance, whilst the capital growth is the actual increase in value of the property over time. And when you have a look at compound growth over a longer period of time, it can be significant, especially for a younger investor. And I might try and put a link to a chart in the podcast notes, but I've got a chart we put together a few years ago, which basically has a look at the cost of waiting to invest for a young investor.
Interesting.
And basically the cost of waiting to invest in property between the ages of 25 and 35 on a single $500,000 property. So bear with me here. So it's a $500,000 property purchased at the age of 25 versus waiting until the age of 35 to buy that $500,000 property. If we take an estimated average return of, let's say, 6% per annum, which is below the long-term average,
okay,
the difference by the age of 75, there's a difference of over $4 million on that single property, from the ages of 25 to 75 versus 35 to 75, which is insane when you think about it. So I've got a chart which breaks it down on basically the difference of 35, 45, 55, and what that equates to over a longer period of time. But a difference of over $4 million just by waiting an extra 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Which is massive. And and number five, I think is the tax benefits. And you would be able to dig a lot deeper into this side with your background. But some of the common tax deductions, I guess, you'd be able to claim by owning an investment property include things like the interest on the money borrowed, property management fees, advertising, repairs, maintenance, insurance, rates, taxes, and so on. So they're probably in my time, what I found is the five top reasons why Australians love property and understand property and want to get involved with property investment.
Yeah, brilliant. And considering this is called Talking Numbers, the numbers you just mentioned there, it's phenomenal to think that 9.95 trillion is residential property, and you sort of, as you mentioned there, against 3.4 trillion and 2.6, just very, very interesting numbers. And yeah, it's a good little story that you talk about, that 25 to 35, that 10-year gap. I suppose that's the great thing of getting in early. And I suppose being a bit older, I'm probably a little bit older than you, but and I'll say that nicely because I think you're a lot younger than me. but the great part about that is, a lot of today's interest rates. I know there's a lot of people talking about, obviously interest rates are going up at the moment, but they've never been as low as what they've been. You talk about when I was a lot younger buying, we were paying huge amounts of interest rates. Yeah. So quite interesting. So to encourage the younger, and I've got younger nieces and so on, and kids coming through. This is fantastic for that, because this is just learning. That's what this is all about. And what you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
So, mate, excuse me, and just excuse the little coughs in between. I suppose we're both recovering from little coughs, mate. So what's the sort of, we're talking property. There's resi, there's industrial, there's commercial, and what's something that you would typically go down, or is that based on every individual's needs?
Yeah, certainly based on every client's individual needs. I guess what I have done in my own portfolio and my own property journey is started off in resi, bought residential properties, got the capital growth, and then started leveraging those residential properties to then bring in commercial property from a cash flow perspective. So I'm very much about building balanced and diverse portfolios. So you want, a stronger capital growth play, maybe a value add, maybe something with future development potential, commercial property. So if you can build this portfolio that's quite balanced and diverse, I think it helps de-risk, and it gives you a lot more options and exit strategies along the way, rather than just going all in on the same property type, same location. But it really comes down to the individual client, I guess, what stage they're at in their personal life and in their property investing journey.
Yeah, very true. And I think the other great, what you just mentioned then, I wrote down, was if you're going to engage with someone to build your property investment portfolio, it's really important to, and with anyone for that matter, whether that be shares or whether that be property, I think it's really important that you've done it yourself. So you like you just mentioned just then, well, it's all about balance. Yes, everyone will be at a different stage of their life. I'm 53 as opposed to someone that could be 25. So therefore mine will be very, very different. But as you just mentioned then, you'll follow the same sort of philosophy, I suppose, and I'll get into that right now, but the philosophy of what you've done yourself to create wealth for yourself in property. That's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think my philosophy in my own property investment journey, and my philosophy for helping clients as well, is you might laugh at this, but it's what I call boring investing. So it's where I guess we focus on established properties, established suburbs, where the data and research point us to. So there's no glossy brochures, there's no rent guarantees, there's no properties being purchased solely on the tax depreciation benefits that you see in a lot of these, ads and glossy magazines. It's just decisions being made on research, data, knowledge, and experience. So a lot of the times we might be buying, and I've got plenty of properties in my own portfolio where there might not be a property or in an area where I'd want to live personally, but that's not why I'm investing. I'm investing from an investment point of view to make money. So we're just making decisions based on research and data.
And that's a really important point, because I think right at the start you spoke about why people love property, and because you said because it's tangible. Now there's pros and cons to that, because people do get drawn into that, what it looks like and where it is, and and as you just mentioned there, the big glossy brochures. So we might, it's a nice little segue into why people get sort of drawn into that, let's call it the emotional state of heading and I'll talk about it because I lived up there as well. And let's say a lot of people go up to holidays to the Gold Coast, or they go to the Sunshine Coast. Well, let's call the Gold Coast. We go up there and we know there's been a huge amount of properties, high rises. You stay there. You do get drawn in emotionally, and then suddenly there's these ads that go up for sale. And you start having that conversation, should we buy one of these? So let's talk about this in terms of what's some of the common mistakes to avoid when purchasing an investment property.
Yeah, I think one of the most common ones that I see all the time is, I guess, lack of strategic planning, where they don't actually have a plan or an idea or any strategy behind what they're buying or where they're buying. And more so just getting caught up in the emotion of saying, hey, we've had pre-approval for X amount. Now let's go buy something. And wouldn't it be great to have, holiday unit on the Gold Coast that we could use during school holidays and be an investment as well, and getting caught up in that approach rather than actually having a strategic plan behind it. Next one is overpaying. Especially if it's, let's say they've come from a big capital city like Sydney or Melbourne where prices are a lot higher. There can be this perception of incredible value in different markets, where they're comparing a property in, let's say, South Australia or Queensland, and they're going, well, that property in Sydney would be worth X amount and we can buy it for Y. Oh, that's great value. So let's just pay top dollar, rather than doing that research, doing that analysis of what's the actual property worth in the market it's in, rather than trying to compare it to a completely different market. Another one is, I guess, lack of solid research and due diligence, which is an interesting one because, again, going back to the emotion side, I find a lot of DIY investors, especially starting off, they do the scrolling through realestate.com and having a look at the photos on how they decide what they want to buy. Which photos look good? Oh, that place looks nice. Rather than looking at the location, the street it's in. The location is the most important part about buying a property. It's what does 80% of the heavy lifting. The actual property itself has a lesser impact on the long-term growth as does the location. So research and due diligence into the location is far more important than buying a house that looks pretty. Buying in the wrong area, which is a fascinating one, and I guess I'll go off on a little bit of tangent on this one. So buying in the wrong area is, we see it time and time again. DIY investors, they typically buy in one of three areas, and I think we could probably all relate to these. Number one is the local area they live in. And I guess it's that comfort, it's that security going, well, I know the area. I can drive past and check on the property. But I always say, if it's tenanted, apart from driving past and seeing that the tenant hasn't mowed the lawn, what are you actually going to do? Number two is the area that they grew up in, or the area where they've got family living. So again, that's that comfort, that security, that they know the area, someone's nearby, they can check on it. And number three, which is the worst of them all, and I think we've all either been through this thought processes ourselves or know people that have done it, is buying in an area where they've been on holiday. So go up, North Coast or Queensland or wherever it is, had a stressful year at work, you're up there with the family, you get to relax, it's beautiful, walking down the main street of the town, walk past the real estate office and you have a look and go, oh, wow. Have a chat with the wife. Oh, we could buy something. We could come up, use it school holidays. We could rent it out on Airbnb and make the decision that way. But, what are the chances out of the 16,000 suburbs in Australia that one of those three areas are going to be the best suited for your individual circumstances and be best for, investment growth and outlook? It's slim to none, really.
Very interesting. And I think you're right. Those sorts of things, it's really easy, especially on places like the Gold Coast, which, if you're from Melbourne, Sydney, you've been up there, there's a lot of spruikers up there. There's a lot of little deals going on. You walk down the mall. I still remember walking down the mall in Broadbeach, and people give you these scratchy things, and you end up winning a TV, and you go, oh, it's a brand new TV. How good's this? And then you end up going to this session, and before you get anywhere, you got to sit through a 1.5 hour. I don't know if anyone else has been sucked into this, but I still remember that happening to us. And we got there and we've gone, what the hell is going on here? And they were very clever. There was another easily 50, 60 people there. And every hour there's another 50, 60 people going through their little system. And I thought, from your and my point of view, go, what a fantastic marketing initiative to get people through the door. Now, yeah, they might lose 80% of the people, just go like us. We just walked in and went, no, this is BS, we're out. But the 20% they'll keep and they'll probably buy.
Yep. And get the glossy brochure to go with it.
That's right. And they give you all the bells and whistles. And as you said, they'll probably, I think the second mistake you just mentioned there, they'll probably overpay, because 9 times out of 10, there's so many little mouths to feed, they overpay, as opposed to trusting someone that's got the knowledge and trusting someone that's got the data and the research, the numbers, let's call it, to make a better decision. And that's where the educational side comes into it, isn't it?
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, mate, fantastic. Look, we've got to the end of our first of our series here, our first episode of our series. One of the things I'd love to just quickly share with everybody, we're probably about 25, 26 minutes in right now. So our next episode of Talking Numbers Property, we're going to talk about rent vesting. Do you want to give our listening a little bit of a tease of what they might look forward to hearing, Jay?
Yeah, so rent vesting is essentially the strategy of renting where you want to live and investing elsewhere where it makes sense. So I think what we're going to dive into is, I guess, number one, what is rent vesting? Why do people do it? And the pros and cons involved in rent vesting. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, brilliant. Because it's not a term that you would hear a lot, but makes a lot of sense. And I think that's the fantastic about this. So, Jay, thanks very much. Thanks for joining us on our Talking Numbers Property Plus podcast series. I'm looking forward to rolling this out, probably episodes after episodes after episodes. It's going to be fantastic. To all of you that are listening, hope you've enjoyed the first episode of Talking Numbers Property Plus. Again, continue to look out for our next one. Like we said, we're going to be talking about rent vesting. You'll learn more about it. So continue to tune in. And Jay, thank you to you. And I look forward to talking to you at our next episode.
Love your work and looking forward to it.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.